Okay, we're recording. Welcome. So I know that right now, probably not a lot of people going on vacation, but maybe a lot of people who feel that they would appreciate a vacation. So I thought we could imagine for a moment that we're going on vacation. So you choose the destination. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You can choose wherever you want. I don't think it's hurricane season yet, so we could maybe go to the Caribbean somewhere. That might be nice. Um, I I mean, maybe not for you. Maybe you live somewhere where it's already like maybe you would like mountains or something. I live in the mountains. We actually just had snow a couple days ago, so I could do with the sun and the warmth and maybe some nice warm water. That could be enjoyable. So we could imagine that we're going wherever we're going. You're going wherever you're going. I'm going wherever I'm going. Now, uh, we're imagining that we're going to wherever wherever this place is. So make it some place you can get excited about. We're going on vacation somewhere. And now let's make it an extended vacation. Let's say it's going to be a month-long vacation. So a month-long vacation. Well, how are you going to manage that? I mean, you're going to have to bring a lot of clothes. You're going to have a lot of money. I mean, how are you going to afford to do that for a month? You stay in a Airbnb for a month. It's going to cost you a pretty penny. In fact, you're probably going to have to bring so many things you don't even have enough luggage. So you're probably going to have to get some more luggage. And then you're going to have to travel. Nobody really wants to do that, do they? I mean, do you enjoy the traveling part? Do you want to be on a plane or in a car for that long? Think about just trying to get to the airport. You got to load all of I mean, first of all, you've taken a week just to get everything packed. You had to go get your new luggage, get all your clothes packed. You have probably to do laundry first. You have to do laundry, and then you got to pack everything in your new luggage. Probably find out some of the new luggage has a tear in it, so you have to go back, replace the new luggage. Finally, get everything packed. You get it in the car. You realize that you actually are really like the car's not sounding so great. So maybe you need to go at least get it checked out before you drive anywhere. Because let's say the airport's like 2 hours away. So okay, you gotta get the car checked out. Get the car checked out. Fortunately, it wasn't bad. It only set you back a couple $100. It's all working now. Now you're gonna go to the airport. By the time you're actually on vacation, is it even any fun anymore? Just turns out to be stressful. So it's stressful and expensive, and by the time you get back from your vacation, you need another vacation because it was such a stressful thing. Yeah, I mean, what you really wanted was you didn't actually want the vacation, you just wanted the rest, but you didn't get the rest. because you went on this complicated vacation, complicated and expensive. So why am I mentioning this? I'm mentioning this because I from my perception, this is what we do. This is what I see us, all of us, doing in our lives, is we get wrapped up in a story and that story has so much weight to it, so much heaviness to it, and then we start to feel like it's like a chain around our neck weighing us down, and we don't like that, so we want something to change, and we work really, really, really hard to change something, but then we drag in our chain, right? This is the chain is it's all the stuff that we think we have to bring with us when we're going on vacation in our lives, so that we can have a sense that we're going to be okay, that we're going to be safe, that we're going to be able to enjoy ourselves. So we just change from one drama to another, and we bring the chain and the heaviness with us, whichever drama we're involved in the moment. So I don't know about you, but I know that none of that sounds very fun to me. I've gotten to a point in my life, I'm not really all that into vacations. That vacation doesn't sound all that nice, in the way that I've described, in that kind of vacation, the old kind of vacation, the kind of vacation where I have to do a lot of, I perceive that I have to do a lot of work just to get to the point of being okay. So okayness is always just out of reach. And what I would propose is something, a different kind of vacation. A vacation is not about the location. It's not about the promise of luxury or a change of scenery. It's actually a vacation from it's a vacation from what we really, really honestly want to vacate. Which is that chain around our neck. And I am proposing that this is entirely possible. It's 100% possible, but it's different than what we have been conditioned to understand as desirable. It's actually it looks very different than what we thought would be desirable, because what we've been told would be desirable was the location, the the change in scenery, the weather, the restaurants, the entertainment. And none of those things really satisfy us, right? I mean, unless I'm talking to the wrong crowd. I mean, maybe you're thinking, no, I love all that stuff. That stuff is really satisfying me at a deep level. I feel completely satisfied in my life with all of the different things that I have pursued. They've really given me what I'm looking for. If so, then I don't know why you would be here. I mean, because I always just assume that if you're here, I think it's a good assumption. If you're here, it's because there's something in you recognizes the deep dissatisfaction with what you've been doing. And I'm not saying that to like point a finger and say, you know, what you were doing, shame on you. I'm just saying you didn't know better. I mean, nobody told you. No, our parents didn't know. Their parents didn't know. Our teachers didn't know. Nobody knew. Everybody's just going along with this promise of someday you'll find the ultimate vacation that's going to really satisfy you. You're going to find that one thing, and the memories will just last you for a lifetime. You'll say, oh, I feel so satisfied because I saw Dolly Parton sing at the Grand Ole Opry, and you know, had those delicious pork ribs when I was on vacation. And no disrespect to Dolly Parton, but I don't think that that's really going to do it for us. And that's, by the way, that's the middle American style of vacation that I enjoyed as a child, was that kind of thing. Very American. So what I'm proposing we really want is a vacation from the unnecessary effort that we make chronically, that we we think we're compelled to do. I mean, can I just, maybe just so I know I'm talking to the right crowd, okay? Can I just have, can you just, if this, you let me know, if you just hold your hand up for just a moment so I can see. I'll ask you, let me see what's the right question. Okay, so let me just hold up your hand for a moment so I can see. Do you sincerely believe that you're going to find something, some person, some circumstance, some amount of money, some career, you fill in the blank, any other thing? You think you're going to find something that's going to satisfy you deeply? And if you really believe that, just, and it's okay. I mean, I'm not here to say anybody's wrong. I'm curious to know, do you believe that you will find something in life that will deeply satisfy you? I don't see anybody raising your hands. Are you afraid, or are you just, maybe I'm talking to the right crowd? That's what's happening. Okay, good. Oh, okay, good. So at least one person is willing to admit it. Okay, good. Right. I'll raise my hand. I'll join. I'll join the honest crowd. I still hold out a little bit of hope. I'd say on a daily basis, I notice that tendency. Definitely notice that tendency. That that sense that if only I can get, yeah, right. Enlightenment is the one remaining thing. But I will admit that I see that in myself. I see on a daily basis how there's still that tendency to believe that something will satisfy. But then there's reality, right? Which is, no matter where I go on vacation, interesting. Thank you for all the responses, by the way, everybody. These are great. It's helpful. It's helpful to know, you know, that way it's more of a little bit more of a conversation than just a monologue. So probably though, yeah, serially disappointed. Yeah, that's serial disappointment. Yeah, these are great. Thank you, everybody. The serial disappointment is really, to me, that's like gold. Serial disappointment is like gold. It's the thing that I thought I desperately wanted to avoid at all costs. Thought I wanted to avoid the disappointment, and so I was just chasing after. There's an expression. What is this expression? Castles in the clouds. Chasing after all of these castles in the air. Thank you. But chasing after all of these promises, these hopes of future fulfillment, and then finding that, like, there's a book. I think it's a John Kabat-Zinn book. Wherever you go, there you are. And I love that title because it's exactly right. You know, wherever you go, there you are. So have you noticed that you go on vacation and there you are, and you were working hard to bring you there. You see what I mean? All the preparation, all of the concerns about in advance. Am I going to be okay? Can I anticipate all of the possible things that could go wrong and make sure that I can guard against them? Right? I don't want to end up on vacation and have no money. I got to make sure I've got money. I've got to have my traveler's checks. I've got to have I don't, people probably don't do this anymore, but you know, people used to have traveler's checks and you get this is a very American thing, I suppose, but you know, you get the like, I don't know what you call them. They're like a kind of, it's a kind of wallet that you put under your clothes, strap it to yourself. You put the traveler's checks in there just in case. Because the last thing you want to do is go on this vacation to Paris and then, yeah, and then you get there and then somebody has stolen your money, and what are you going to do? Then you can't have a good time. So you got to guard against that by getting you got to have the traveler's checks and the American Express and have them in separate things. One, your wife straps one to her, you strap one to you, hide some things in the socks, and you probably need to get some. I'm sure, I'm, I don't even know. I don't even know if there is such a thing, but I'm sure there is such a thing as traveler's insurance. There's got to be. It's got to be, because there's a whole that insurance industry will sell you insurance for anything, anything, anything at all, because the whole industry is built upon exactly what I'm talking about, which is to make sure it's all to ensure that you can drag the noose into the future wherever you go. And why? Because the noose is what we have become accustomed to believing is what we are. All those habits of seeking for security and future fulfillment that are so desperately, deeply dissatisfying, so just torturously unsatisfying. And those are exactly what we've come to identify ourselves as. I mean, isn't that true? Because if you didn't have those things, who would you be? If you were not occupied with the concerns over your future happiness, and all of the ways that that could go wrong that you need to protect yourself from. Yeah, the ferocious desire to squeeze this moment, which is, I would say, is actually the it's the inversion of the same thing. Because there's still some sense of, I mean, why would I need to squeeze this moment? Unless I'm wanting to somehow have a memento that I can bring home with me into the future. You see, like the home is in the future. That's our idea of it. We don't know where home really is because we're always so concerned with the future. When we're here, we want to be there. We want to be on vacation. When we're on vacation, we want to be home. So when we're constantly doing this, constantly doing this. I see this in myself constantly, just a constant thing. It's it's what the body mind does. So what we actually want a vacation from is that. I mean, isn't that so? Is there, so let me see again. Okay. Is there anybody here who would not like, and just raise your hand if you would not like to have a vacation from, and a permanent vacation from the chronic striving for future happiness and security? Is there anybody who would not like a vacation from it? Can just, if so, just let me see your hand, just so I know. Nope. Okay, one person who does not want. I don't know that I believe that, but maybe it's true. Um, so this let me see if I can make the case a little bit more strongly. It may be just because you're too young to remember the traveler's checks, and so that wasn't clear enough. um, so another way of looking at this is, okay, I could just put this more simply. Okay, this is takes a while to get to simplicity sometimes. Okay, what will really satisfy you? What on earth do you really want? I mean, have you really considered this? What will make you happy? I mean, really, truly happy, not just like a little flash in the pan, not just like, ooh, ooh, uh, I don't know what's on, I don't know what's on TV anymore these days. The last time I watched TV, it was Alf. Remember Alf? It's an American thing. If you're not American, you don't know about Alf probably. But it's like, it's Wednesday, it's Alf night. I'm not talking about that kind of thing, because that thing just comes and goes. I mean, is there anything what will actually satisfy you? What, because isn't that what you want? Don't you really want to be satisfied? I mean, really, 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 not just like, you don't want to just be dragged from one moment to the next, just getting through with the carrot dangling always that in the future maybe it will be okay, or the stick. Maybe sometimes we get uh so so focused on the stick, the threat, the perceived threat, that we're about to be destroyed. We don't even, it's like, we don't have time for a carrot. Just get me out of here. I just don't want to be tortured. But don't we really want to be real satisfaction? I mean, if you don't want satisfaction, please let me see a hand. Let me raise your hand if you do not want satisfaction. Good. I don't see anybody raising their hand. Yeah, right. Scared to lose yourself. That's right. Yeah. So at least we all can maybe agree on this, unless I've just totally lost you, that we want satisfaction. But can we admit that we're looking for it in the wrong places or in the wrong ways? Because we haven't found it. Isn't that so? Have you found, I don't even have to ask that question. If you had, you wouldn't be here. You haven't found real lasting satisfaction. And I'm suggesting that it's what you want. It's the only thing that really matters to you. The rest of everything else is just to get to that. Isn't it? I mean, what else? You could say, well, I've got family, I've got kids, I've got obligations, I've got to take care of them, I've got to do the right thing, I've got aging parents, I have to take care of them, I'm doing all of the right things. This is what motivates me in life. Yeah, bullshit. That doesn't motivate you in life. That's just what motivates you is that it comes back to future satisfaction. You're afraid, and I can know this just because it's the human experience. I experience it too. I'm afraid that if I don't do those things, if I don't fulfill my obligations, I will suffer. I don't care about anyone else. You don't care about anyone else. That's just that's a lie that we tell ourselves so that we can feel better about our self-betrayal, which, by the way, is just betrayal. It's just betrayal of life. It's betrayal of life. We tell ourselves that we care about other people so that we can use that as an excuse to betray life. Because what is the deepest longing? We want satisfaction, but we're willing to betray that because for any reason, we'll just make them up. We just make up reasons. And it's to the extent that you see, I was giving sort of a ludicrous example, except that it's like what people actually do. Maybe not anymore, but they do variations of that. I guess you don't have to have traveler's checks anymore because they're obsolete, because there's some superior version that's now available. You get the microchip implanted and you don't have to worry about that until you do. And the Amex Gold Card, yeah, unless somebody steals it. But that's why the microchip will help. I'm joking, except I'm not joking. I mean, I'm joking and not joking at the same time. So we want satisfaction, but we lie to ourselves about it. We lie to ourselves and tell ourselves that we have other motivations, when in fact, the only motivation is we want satisfaction. The problem is that we think that satisfaction is going to be found in the future. Why? Because we think, well, this isn't it. I need a vacation from this. We think. I need a vacation from this. And then, but here's the thing, is we're not actually looking to correctly identify what this is that we need a vacation from. So we go to these great, we go to these great lengths. Really, really great lengths. Deluding ourselves into believing that we're going on this ultimate vacation that's going to be so wonderful, and we've got to take care. I mean, we don't want to screw it up, so we've got to do things the right way. And yeah, it's a little bit of a bother, and yeah, it's a kind of a drag, and yeah, whatever. But you just got to do these things. You got to have the good luggage. You got to have the traveler's checks. You gotta have, if you have all this stuff, you don't want to screw it up by not having the traveler's wallet that you're going to strap to your chest. You got to have all these different things, and then by the time you get there, you're like, ugh. And that's what's happening, isn't it? Every day of our lives, isn't that what's going on? We just look for what's gonna be the thing, what's gonna distract me, what's on TV, what's on YouTube, what's on what new emails did I get? Are there any new books that I haven't read? What can I do? Or, can I hang out with some friends? Maybe that would be better. Is there somebody, a better lover? Maybe could I have a better lover? Maybe that would do it. Maybe I need to go on a diet. Maybe I need an exercise routine. Maybe if I was really fit, then I would be happy. And so we just go from one thing to the next, but we're not looking at what is the actual, why are we actually dissatisfied? And it's like, to me, it's something that I overlooked for most of my life. And yet it's extraordinarily obvious when somebody points it out. So I hope when I point it out, it will be obvious to you, which is, do you even know that you're dissatisfied? And be careful, because you're going to say, oh yes, I do know. But how do you know? How do you know that you're dissatisfied? And that's right. Privately, some people were telling me that they don't know. And then, yeah, thank you. Still seeking. So still seeking, this is great. So the real truth is, I don't know. It's got to be. It has to be. The real truth is, I don't know. How could you know that you're dissatisfied? You can't know. But we infer it. We infer it because we say, well, I'm still seeking. I wouldn't be seeking if I wasn't dissatisfied. It's sort of like a heroin addict saying, well, if I if I if I didn't have a craving for a fix, it's like I know that I need the heroin because I have the craving for the fix. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Yeah, technology is my heroin. Yeah, right. But that's great. It's great to see that we're, and we've all got it. I mean, all of us are doing these things. We're doing these things that we know this is. How many times have you done the same thing? You know it's not going to satisfy you, but you keep thinking it will. So the first thing I would say is, let's actually know. It becomes percent. Oh, now I've got to hold on. I've got to go read that. Yeah, the messages flash across the screen. What I meant is, seeking is still going on, but it becomes perceptible in fact that continual compulsive seeking hurts. Yeah, right. So here's this is my Joey's nugget of wisdom for today. Okay. Is that if you experience discomfort, and that's a wide open thing. Okay, so any type of discomfort, you could label it as physical discomfort, emotional discomfort, psychological discomfort, spiritual discomfort, disembodied discomfort, embodied discomfort. I don't care. If you experience any discomfort, when you experience the discomfort, here's what I would recommend that you do. I would recommend that you stop. So whatever you're doing, just stop, just for a moment. I mean, unless you can't, I mean, you can. I'm not saying that if you're in the middle of a life-saving operation, you're a doctor, you're a surgeon, and don't you can't continue maybe if you need to. But anytime you can, just stop for a moment, just for a moment, just like this little pause. Because here's the thing: is that dissatisfaction that I'm talking about, it depends upon momentum. If you stop for a moment, it's interrupted. And that's where the real you start to see reality as it is. If you just stop, then you start to see directly that you don't know what this is. Your mind is perfectly happy when you're moving at very rapid speeds, and it's relying upon this momentum to keep things going. It's perfectly happy to tell you that it knows what this is, because that mode of operation, which I have started to call symbolic mode, that mode of operation is it happens at high speed. Happens at high speed. So if you continue, you're just going to continue doing more of the same. Yeah, I call it symbolic mode is a question. I call it symbolic mode because it uh, appears to be to function based on symbols rather than direct perception. So there is direct perception. We could say, let me just I'll narrow that down a little bit and just say there's direct sensory perception. Okay, so just so that's easy to understand, so that you are seeing, feeling, hearing, and that's happening, and you don't know what any of that is, because it hasn't collapsed into anything. It's not something. It's there's just direct perception. So you could imagine for a moment, and it's totally possible to do. Your conditioned mind will say, well, how do I know? But it's totally possible to do. So just forget about the how do I know how to do that, and just do it for a moment. Just imagine yourself as a baby, like a newborn baby, and just look. Just see. It only seems challenging sometimes just because of the habit of being stuck in symbolic mode. But a baby has very limited symbolic mode because it doesn't have many symbols to refer to. It hasn't developed them. It doesn't yet know mama and dada. It doesn't know that. I'm talking newborn. It doesn't know. It has no clue. So just imagine that for a moment. Like, you don't know. And you can see how quickly the conditioned mind, it comes in, and this is symbolic mode. It's trying to be helpful. It's like it's doing its job. It's great. Yeah. And so it tells you, oh, I know what that is. It's just trying to be helpful. It's like that overachiever in grade school who's always raising his hand. I'm like, shut up, stop. Like, he can't help himself. He's just like, oh, I know the answer. I know the answer. Symbolic mode is like that. It's like, I know the answer. And so it's always moving fast. Always. So the trick is slow down. Because when you slow down, it shifts from symbolic mode to direct perception. I don't know, Hardy. I can only read so many things and try to talk at the same time. So when we slow down, then what do we notice? Well, actually, let's just all slow down for a moment together, just so that you can have this actual experience. Because yeah, that's great. You can close your eyes. You can not close your eyes. Whatever you want. It doesn't matter. There's not a right way. I mean, it's actually interesting just to observe the way that you do it. Just to notice. Now, if you really just slow down, so you're not trying to get anywhere, you're not trying to get the right answer, you're not trying to figure it out, you're not trying to do anything. You're just really, really, really slowing down. So that even you could slow down so much so that even if a thought was to occur, the amount of effort required to try to do something with that thought is just too much. It's just like, why would you want to bother? You know, it's like you're already on vacation. You didn't have to do anything for it. You didn't have to go anywhere for it. You didn't have to pack your bags. You didn't have to get the traveler's checks. You didn't have to do anything. You're already here. And so since you're already here, and then the thoughts come up, and the thoughts are like, it's like you're on vacation and somebody's trying to talk to you about work. Like, shh, I'm having a nice time. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm on vacation. Yeah, that's right. That's right. All the conditioning is to avoid this. That's right. So there are a variety of things that can occur when making this switch. Yeah, great. So you said, I got to switch screens again. It says, I find it incredibly hard to stay dropped. So can you elaborate on what is the challenge? And so I'm asking you just observe your actual experience. Just observe what actually is happening. And great, I'm happy to read that. So just notice what actually is happening. So if there's something that you say, look, it's incredibly hard to say dropped. So this tells us some things. I mean, just the language used tells us some things about how you perceive this experience. And then it also tells us something about how you perceive the whatever it is that happens that seemingly makes it difficult. But tell me more about that. What, and this is open to anybody. Just let me know what actually, if so there's a couple of possibilities. One possibility is you just hanging out here and it's great. And it's just uninterrupted and it's just pure delight. That's one possibility. Another possibility, which was hinted at by some, is, well, it's kind of challenging, maybe, seemingly, to just remain with the direct experience, to remain in this, what I refer to as presence mode. So these are actual operating modes of the nervous system. Yeah, it's challenging to the conditioned idea I have of who I am. Great. So now, see what that is. So you see, so I want to point out something. That the answer is great, and notice where that answer came from. I can tell you where the answer came from because of its because of the nature of the answer. The answer came from symbolic mode. The symbolic mode says, ooh, I know the answer. So now what I really like is observe from presence mode. What is actually happening that you then describe as, I'd have to go to the other screen, but something about the idea of who you are. What is the actual experience? What is this actual experience of the idea of who I am? Because the idea of who I am is an idea from symbolic mode. But in presence mode, you can describe to me in less symbolic language, let's say. I mean, all language is symbolic, but yeah, it's a muscular contraction. That's exactly right. Bingo. Yeah, a jolt. Yeah, great. So so there we could say, yeah, reminding me not to let myself die. Now that's from symbolic mode. So look at what is the actual experience. The actual experience is what you were describing prior to that. The actual experience is the contraction, the jolt. It's something felt. You could call it fear. Yeah, you could call it fear. However, the thing about calling it fear, and I sometimes call it fear too, but we have to be careful. Yes, because fear is still a symbol. Fear, again, if you're a newborn baby, you have no idea what fear is. You've never experienced fear. I mean, by the way, nobody has experienced fear. It's not even possible. But you don't know fear. You don't know this word. You don't know this idea. You've never had an experience to refer to from the past and say, "Oh, this is like that. This is fear. Like that was fear." You don't know that. So all that's available is this. What is the wailing from? Well, yeah, but see, that's the who's going to answer that question? Where is the wailing from? If the baby is crying, who's going to answer that question? Possibly, but who's attempting to answer the question is you, as this conditioned mind, symbolic mind, and to the questioner who was asking, just again, what is symbolic mode? Symbolic mode is the mode of operation of the nervous system that is it is how we, it's not the villain, It's how we. It's a good thing. It's a useful function. There's nothing bad about it. You've probably heard in some traditional spiritual teachings, they talk about uh, they say they'll say something like the mind is a, what do they say? They say mind is a wonderful servant but a terrible master, something like that. Okay, so symbolic mode is what people often refer to as the mind. Yes, every time you use a word, it is symbolic. That's true. Well, I actually, I'll have to take that back. I'm not sure that that's always true. But we won't get into that right now. But just to clarify, back to the question about what am I meaning by symbolic mode? So it's what people often refer to as the mind. And people have, especially in spiritual circles, people have learned to believe that the mind is bad. Mind is the enemy. The mind is causing them all their problems. And this is not true. The mind, or the symbolic, what I'm calling the symbolic mode, is wonderful. It's very helpful. So here's the thing. Okay, you have to understand. Presence mode is trying to think of the right word. Can't think of the right word. But presence mode, I get some funny comments that come across the screen. Presence mode is okay. So there's a phenomenon that exists within the nervous system that we call time. And the relationship of that function of time within the nervous system is different between symbolic mode and presence mode. Presence mode slows down and creates a sense of expanding time, or pausing time, or making time subtler, so that we are, or no time at all. And so we are just simply present. But because there's no, I don't know if it's because of the time relationship, but there's some aspect of this mode that only allows us to be, well, okay, here's what it is. We can't divide. This is what it is. Okay, when we're in presence mode, we're unable to divide. We're unable to separate. It's just, we have this. Isn't that so? I mean, if that's not your experience, let me know. But my experience is very clearly, there's no separation, there's no division in presence mode. It's just one. Now, seemingly, as a consequence of this, and I could be mistaken about this, it's possible that I just haven't developed enough to know better. But my experience is that in presence mode, I can only do one thing, which is just be present. I also would refer to presence mode as learning mode. It's very satisfying because we love to learn, and we learn in presence mode. It's not memorization. Memorization is different. Learning, you have to be present to learn. You have to not know to learn. So, in some Buddhist teachings, they talk about emptying your bowl, or beginner's mind, because if you come already full, you can't receive. So presence mode is learning mode because we're emptied. We're emptied of all of the concepts, emptied of all of the ideas of the past, emptied of all of that, so we can just be present to what actually is. And instead of straight away insisting tree. We're actually just present to the experience so that we can discover what we couldn't possibly discover if we were just functioning from symbolic mode. But here's the thing. If you want to be able to walk and talk at the same time, which is nice to be able to do, I believe, it's my experience, and again, it could just be because I'm not advanced enough to know better. But my experience is I need to function from symbolic mode in order to do that. I need to utilize symbolic mode in order to do multitask. Unless I want to do it really, really, really slowly. But if you're trying to go for a walk with somebody and talk to them, have a conversation, they may not find it satisfying to do that in presence mode. It just might be. It might make for an awkward conversation. So symbolic mode allows us to multitask. It allows us to do all the things that this culture, the broader culture that we live in, is so focused on, because the broader culture is very much a function of symbolic mode. 100% symbolic mode. I mean, think about this culture. Think about it. It's like, what is the culture built upon? Largely upon money and ideas. Yeah, with money being just a symbol. Yeah, selling you the vacation. That's right. But so this culture is, I would say, 100% a culture of symbolic mode, and you're supposed to, in order to be successful in this culture, you have to accomplish a lot. And in order to accomplish a lot, you have to be able to multitask. And in order to be able to do that, you have to use symbolic mode. I don't think that that's bad. Here's the problem. If we don't know about presence mode, then I don't, maybe I don't want to say that there's only two modes. I don't know that there's only two modes, but we could say at least 50% of all experience is instantly eliminated from your life if you are not accessing presence mode. If you don't know how to access presence mode, at least 50% of reality is just eliminated from your experience. And that's right, yeah, unsustainable for sure. So symbolic mode is, I don't perceive that symbolic mode is bad at all. I think that it is what it is, and I think it can be very useful. But we, in our hurry to get somewhere, in our hurry to get to where we imagine satisfaction will be found in the future, we have overlooked and underdeveloped our skills and capacities to be present to life. And to respond to that question, is it possible to function from presence mode when there's a perception of danger? Yeah, for sure. I mean, people report that all the time. Yeah, like a tiger. I mean, it's a choice, because if your only concern is to escape from the tiger, you're not going to be able to. You're probably your likelihood of meeting that experience from presence mode is diminished, because presence, one of the ways to access presence mode is curiosity. I guess curiosity killed the cat. but it's if you're curious, if you're really, really curious, then all of the self-concern is lessened. So my proposal is that this noose around our necks, it's not strictly symbolic mode, because as I'm saying, symbolic mode isn't bad. The noose around our necks is our compulsive efforting to cling to symbolic mode and thereby avoid at great cost what I'm calling presence mode. Because then what happens is we come to genuinely believe that all we are is what's found in symbolic mode, which is this constant dissatisfaction, striving for the future. So then we desperately want a break from that. We want a vacation from that. We want some kind of alternative, and so we want a vacation. But then we ruin the vacation. I know in Europe, maybe people call it a holiday. They don't call it a vacation. But I kind of like the word vacation better, because we're vacating. Isn't that an interesting thing? We're vacating. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a holy day. So then it's kind of the same thing. So we're vacating. What are both of these pointing to? If we're vacating or if it's a holy day? You know, just to, I don't know, it just popped into my mind. I'll mention it. You know, I think it was during World War One. It was during World War One. I think it was during World War One. There were I think it was during it. There were these strange events that occurred where the warring soldiers would stop fighting and they would play soccer instead. Some of them apparently got in big trouble for that. So holy day. Yeah, I think they sang Christmas carols. That's right. So a holy day or a vacation is like we're on the we're in the thank you. We're in the trenches. We're out there on the front lines, getting shot at, shooting, miserable. wondering, when is this going to be over? When am I going to be able to be okay? When am I going to find peace? When am I going to find satisfaction? When am I going to stop being so afraid all the time? And we don't know, we don't see, because we're so caught up in the urgency of it. We don't see that we're doing it. I mean, who fights the wars? The wars don't fight themselves. And so these soldiers saw, in some way, mysteriously, they saw that there is no war. There's no war. There's no such thing. It's made up. What we call war is only the actions of the people who are doing that. That's it. If the soldiers refuse to shoot at one another, there is no war. You can't, do you understand that you can't have a war if the soldiers don't shoot? And they realize this. Well, that's right. Fighting was their sworn duty. Yeah. But that's the whole thing, is that's what we have sworn to as well. We have sworn to fight for some future fulfillment. But what I'm saying is, we can be just like those soldiers, and we can realize that there is no war. It doesn't exist out there. There is no such thing. War, this is actually a great illustration of the difference between symbolic mode and presence mode. Okay, when you're operating from symbolic mode, you say, well, there's got to be a war, because look, people are shooting and I'm feeling afraid. This wouldn't be happening if there wasn't a war. And since there's a war, and since, by the way, it's my sworn duty, I'm going to fight. And then what happens is, somehow miraculously there's a switch to presence mode, and there's just clear seeing. Oh, I would like to sing Christmas carols, and there are some people over there who'd like to sing Christmas carols. We can sing Christmas carols. Oh, we could play soccer, because there's no war. There's clearly no war. There's no such thing. There's just people, some of whom were shooting at one another, but now they don't have to shoot at one another, because that was just a story. So it's this. So when we want a vacation, what we want a vacation from, we want to vacate our, we want to vacate our symbolic territory. And we want to inhabit reality. And when we inhabit reality, then we see, oh, there's no limitations here. The limitations are only in symbolic mode. For the baby, newborn baby, what limitations exist? For that baby, no limitations. I mean, so maybe you say, okay, baby born without a hand. Let's use that as an example. Okay, a baby born without a hand. Does that baby have any limitations? Baby doesn't have any limitations. You might think there are limitations, though. So, you know, you can start to see how the whole world is organized at present. The whole world is organized in support of limitations, in support of all of these ideas, which are totally made up, completely made up. I mean, I have two hands, like the majority of humans. And so things are organized around that, right? And so then we say, well, if a person only has one hand, then there are limitations for that person. But why? The limitations are only because of the story that it's more desirable and better and more functional and whatever to have two hands. But what if the majority of humans had three hands? And then those of us who only have two hands, we would have limitations. Now, yesterday, you had no idea that you had any such limitations, but all of a sudden it comes to your attention, hey, the majority of humanity has three hands and everything is now organized around having three hands. You have to use three hands to open every door now. So all of a sudden you're informed that you have limitations that you didn't even know about. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the point, is that limitation is from comparison. Comparison is to some idea of the past. So the baby doesn't have that. That's my point. To the baby, the reality is just wide open. Absolutely wide open. There's no perception of limitation because there's no idea of limitation. And this is the thing, is that in presence mode, this is always true. Listen, it never ceases to be true. And so the question is that not just based on the idea that I'm a body, which is a limited thing? I would say there's some validity to that. But even with the body, the idea of limitation is not inherent. Because the body, the natural experience of the body is that it is already whole and complete. Conceptually, this doesn't make sense. Conceptually, because conceptually we look at the body and we say, well, the body is separate. But in the direct experience, you could say in the direct experience there is no body, but which maybe is valid. But at least from a somatic perspective, if you're just tuning into the somatic experience, which doesn't really strictly depend upon a body, but it is what we normally translate into I have a body. The somatic experience is whole and complete. There's nothing about the somatic experience. I mean, just notice that notice this sense of being that that's associated with feeling. So you have a sense that you exist. This sense of existence is what I would call the somatic experience. And the somatic experience does not depend upon the body, but it's normally what we associate with the body. And there's no limitation to it. It's boundless. It doesn't have any beginning or end. And here's the thing, is there's no way to know about the reality of limitation. Limitation is just a made up idea. It's just made up by comparison of one idea to another idea. There's zero, just no evidence whatsoever, nothing that demonstrates that limitation is real. Limitation is just made up in the mind. And so the body, the idea that the body is defined as this however you define it. I mean, I guess everybody's got it, maybe their own experience of that, but this shape, these sensations, whatever, uh, and then that compared to some other idea of something else, that's what gives rise to the sense that there is limitation within the body. But in fact, in the direct experience, there's no perception of limitation whatsoever. So in presence mode, in presence mode, it's impossible to find any limitation. In presence mode, it's impossible to find a boundary. In presence mode, it's impossible to find a beginning or an end. So my proposal is that we can take a vacation simply by entering presence mode. And this is like, it helps us to see what actually is. It helps us to see reality as it is. It helps us to perceive reality as it is, so that we are no longer just reacting to the same reactions, chains of reactions that we've always reacted to, all of which, if you trace them back, you have to see all of them. Yeah, they're Pavlovian triggers, that's right. And all of them go back, they just go back to some original reaction. And then this little thing came on board that said, here, I can help. Don't worry, I'll handle it. And that's the original symbol. And then everything is compared to that. So this is, and if you look at people, you'll see, okay, this is an interesting thing. Just observe this in people, and then I'll wrap it up after I say this. And then you can observe it in yourself also. That people, but it's usually easier to see it in other people, usually. Okay, so you look at other people you know, or that you don't know, and just observe, and you'll almost certainly notice that they work hard to maintain what they don't want. Right? So it's like, you see this in other people. You see when somebody else is going, somebody says, I'm going to go on vacation. And you say, oh, sounds so nice. I'm so happy for you. And then you see what they start doing. And you see that they're putting the noose around their neck. And you say, no, don't do that. Here, let me help you. Just go on a nice vacation. Don't do all of that. And this is what we're doing all the time. So this is why people, you see, like, you probably know somebody. I mean, everybody knows somebody, and you may be that person who's married their mother or father like 4 or 5 times. I mean, they look different, but it's like, why do you keep marrying the same person and you have the same problems? I mean, isn't it true? Like, I know people like this. And even as a child, I knew people like this, and who, and, they're on their like 3rd marriage, and I knew their previous wives, and I'm like, you're marrying the same person again, the same person you just divorced. You're marrying them, and why do you think this is going to be different? But they don't know. They don't see it. So why do they do that? And there's some proposals coming across the screen, which I basically would agree with, but let's just get in simple language. It's because they're working to maintain the original symbol that set them up with what is this world? How does it work? Who am I? So if the original symbol, and then everything that flows out of that, is that in order to be okay, in order to be safe, in order to obtain future fulfillment, I need to marry my mother. They're going to keep doing that. And so then we can just start to see that that's what's going on with us. We're dragging our own symbols. We tie the symbols onto the chain and we put it around our neck, and then we drag it to every place we go, every relationship, every location. There we are with our noose of symbols. And then we're comparing. We think we need all the symbols because we think that's going to give us security. And we can compare what's going on, or what we think about what's going on, to all of these symbols, and then we'll know, how am I doing? Am I doing good? Am I doing bad? Here's an amazing thing. When you're sleeping, and not when you're dreaming, but when you're in deep sleep, you don't have a problem. Why would that be? Why? Because I know that when sometimes, but up until the moment you fall asleep, you have a problem. Isn't that so? Sometimes you're lying there and you're just going over and over and over and over and over the problem. So until the moment you fall asleep, sometimes you have problems, and then when the moment you're in deep sleep, no problem. Why would that be? What changed? The thing that changed clearly was that whatever content was you were focused on dropped away. And I would say that's because you can't bring the chain of symbols into deep sleep. Deep sleep can't support that. So we can offer ourselves that all the time. That's what presence mode does. It lets us get that clarity. It's not, I'm not saying that you do this and everything's going to work out the way that you think it should. Does it apply to socializing? Yeah, it applies to everything. The thing to notice, though, is that okay, I said I was going to wrap it up. So let me just say just wrap this up with one little closing comment about this, which is that when we're in deep sleep, we don't have we don't attempt to protect ourselves. So whatever is happening is just happening. We don't try to protect ourselves. We don't try to grasp anything. We don't try to do anything. When we're in the waking state, what's different is that when we enter presence mode, then all of the experience is bare. And because we're unaccustomed to bare experience or bare experiencing without the filtering of symbols, we tend to interpret that experience as, this is bad. I need to protect myself. So we go right back. We say, well, if I'm afraid or if I'm unsure, I want to go to my stash of symbols, find an appropriate one to help protect me, like a shield or a sword. Yeah, or words. And so normally what happens is that the way that we interpret the experience of bare experiencing is, this is uncomfortable, this is scary, this is bad. And this is how we trap ourselves so that we continue to marry our mothers or our fathers over and over and over. Or you know, end up working for the same kind of employer. You think, like, you work for some abusive boss and you finally say, I've had enough of this, and you get out of there, and then the next job you're working for the same boss again. I mean, it's a different name, different appearance, but it's the same person. It's because we continue to drag the symbols around our neck into each experience. But that's because we're uncomfortable with just the bare experiencing. So it's just something to be aware of, is that when you're living from presence mode, it's bare experiencing. It's wide open. And you should expect that your nervous system is going to propose to you all kinds of ideas. Yeah, jolts. Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. And our tendency is, when those jolts occur, say, what symbol? What symbol? What symbol do I use? And the alternative is just stay on vacation. You don't need your luggage. You don't need the traveler's checks. You don't need to care. You know, it's like, who cares? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if somebody mugged you. It doesn't matter if you've got a hotel to stay in. It doesn't matter if you're going to see the best shows. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're going to get back home. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. I mean, that has to be the attitude. If you want real satisfaction. And the last thing I'll say about this before I open it up is that satisfaction is found now. I mean, you've heard that before, I know, but it's such an important point, is that it's found now. You're never going to find it in the future. So all of the thoughts and excuses and limitations that your mind proposes, your conditioned mind proposes, you just have to see that they're not true, because it's going to continue to do that. It's going to say, well, nice try. You know, it's going to say, okay, fine. You want to do presence mode? Fine. You do presence mode and we'll see how that works out. And then, you know, 2 seconds later it says, well, it's not working out so well, is it? You got to come running back to me. Let's get it all sorted out. You know, here's a jolt. Okay. Now, you want the sword or you want the shield? And you just have to say, wait a second, wait. The satisfaction isn't going to be found in the future. I've been playing this game for all of these years of my life, and I never got to that future satisfaction. It was always out of reach. Let's just give this a fair shake. Just give it a fair shake. Let's just find out. If I've lived for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, more or less chronically in symbolic mode, and I constantly striving for future satisfaction, and I haven't yet found it, maybe I should just try 1 year. Doesn't that seem fair? 1 year of 60% presence mode. You don't even have to go 100%, just, 10 minutes. But I mean, imagine that, 1 year, 60% of the time, presence mode. Doesn't that seem like that would be a minimum for a fair try? Seems like it to me. So if you haven't actually done that, and who among us has? I don't think I have. Yeah, why? True. Why not? Why not 65, 70? Yeah. So if you want desperately to do exactly that, then I say there is nothing limiting you, nothing restricting you, then nothing preventing you from doing that. Absolutely nothing preventing you from doing that. There's only, yeah, that's right. But here's the thing about the life. Okay, I said it was the last thing I was going to say. Now I've got a bunch of questions, which I'll respond to, but just want to respond to that last comment, which is that it's a lifetime of conditioning. And yes and no, because the lifetime of conditioning is, in fact, only the conditioning that is presenting itself now, period. It doesn't matter. It's only an idea that it has any greater effect because it's been a lifetime. The actual reality is that it's only ever presenting itself now, and it's like the Wizard of Oz, you know, the scene in the movie where the Toto has drawn back the curtain of the booth, and there's the Wizard of Oz, and he's pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That's what the conditioning is. The conditioning projects itself big on the screen. But here's an interesting thing. I know I keep saying I'm not gonna say any more than I do, but it's an interesting experiment. Try this. Okay. I think this is a very interesting experience. Okay, you can just take your finger and hold it like, I don't know, foot or so from your face, and just look at it. I can see some of you, so I can know if you're doing it or not. Okay. And then slowly bring the finger closer and closer and closer, and eventually you'll just choose one eye and maybe just close the other eye and bring the finger right up as close as you're comfortable bringing it to the eyeball, and keep looking at it, and then tell me, yeah, well, and then tell me, is that the same finger you're looking at? The same finger you were just looking at? So when you're looking at it out here and then you're looking at it here, is that the same finger? Symbolic mode says yes. Symbolic mode says this is a stupid question. Of course it's the same finger. Look, it's there and then it's here. It's the same finger. But notice what do you actually see? It's not the same, is it? When the finger is right up close to the eyeball, it occupies a large amount of the field of vision. And actually, in direct perception, you see it as larger. But symbolic mode tells you it's the same finger, and symbolic mode tells you it's the same size. So this is why am I mentioning this? I'm mentioning this because the idea of the conditioning, the lifelong conditioning, it's like, this is lifelong conditioning. It's like, it's lifelong conditioning, but but it's not. Just, if you've got lifelong conditioning, just do this. And then you see clearly, because you're not just holding that so close. You just get a little bit of space to see. All right, so couple other questions that came across, and I'll respond to those, and then I'll open it up for anybody else. A lot of, okay. All the symbolic conditioning seems to be reliant on the concept or perception of time. If we can soften or hold on time, that may be an opening to presence mode. Yeah. It's an interesting observation. And I know that my video is frozen when I'm looking at this screen, so you don't need to be concerned. Yes. If we, it's an interesting, it's true. But let's see if we can do anything useful with that. Okay, yeah. So what I would suggest is you can notice what time is. And I'm not going to give you the answer because the answer is not something that I can tell you, but you can just observe it in your actual experience to see if you can discover what the actual nature of time is. And when you see this, you will necessarily be switching to presence mode. And there's a lot of things. I'm not sure that I can read through all of these here, but let me see a couple more. Symbolic mode seems to be necessary for general management jobs, etc. Yeah, probably less than we think, but I would say that again, I'm not anti-symbolic mode. I think it's useful. We just mistake it to be primary, and we fail to recognize a lot of the time that it's at best half of the picture. And the idea of whole life conditioning is a limitation to seeing in another yoke I tie myself to. Yes, thank you. I think that was, yeah. Oh, wait, there was one more thing. Oh, so, okay. So then there was one more. Can symbolic mode be useful though? And is there a good example? I don't know. I don't know if I have a good example of how symbolic mode is useful. I mean, I would say that uh, if you enjoy being able to respond to your name, I'd say that it's useful in that regard. Oh, another question came, or another something. Yes. Okay. Great. So just another comment that came. It says that this person has had the experience uh, of being at work, and the symbolic mode was the servant of being. It says here, and the job went much better. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I find that it's nicer to default to presence mode rather than the other way around. Yeah. And I would say that the presence mode is the default, but we just became very we worked really hard to compulsively engage with symbolic mode. So any other questions or comments? And you can yeah, let them fly. So I'm recording this. It'll be up on YouTube publicly. So if you don't mind being in the video, then you're welcome to unmute yourself and speak. And yes, yeah, just email me about that. And if you prefer to send a message across through the chat, you're welcome to do that. Okay, let me switch over to read that. It says, What about the people who have not learned the obviousness of this? If those people are types that need the obviousness, maybe next week question. Well, who who could uh, who could determine if somebody needs something or not? I know. I mean, one of the things that I've learned uh, as a father is that I want the best for my children, and but that's all based on my ideas. I don't know what's best. And so I do my best to provide what I believe is important for them: love and support and encouragement and food and shelter and all those sorts of things. And then I often, because they're their own people, uh, we have these disagreements about things that would be best. And so sometimes they think something would be best that I think is not a good idea at all. And then we have to sort that out. Uh, and I've had to learn that a lot of the time when I think that something would be best or something is important, uh, I'm actually mistaken about that. When I really look more closely, the truth is I don't know. There's some things that I'm pretty sure about, but again, it's for me, not really for them. Like I selfishly I want them to be alive. And so when they want to do things that I have safety concerns about, then uh, usually uh, I usually err on the side of conservatism. But but there are a lot of things where I don't know. I just don't know. I would think that that wouldn't be what they would want, but turns out that is what they want. I don't know. I can't, and or what I think they should want, they don't want. So I just have found that in general, uh, I can't be in charge of other people. I can't know what they need. And then there was another thing here: presence mode and symbolic mode, and the question of which one I am versus the one I do. Oh, um, well, I it's an interesting. I wouldn't have thought to put it in that way. Um, I wonder if that's a useful framing or not. I would say uh, I wouldn't I wouldn't try to puzzle that one out, because I'm not sure that might be leading in an sort of unhelpful direction. Just because I don't know that it really matters. Um, they're just different modes. They both have potential value. I mean, the real thing is you're aware either way. Presence mode just allows you to be consciously aware, but you're equally aware. And you could say is in some sense it's like saying when you're having a dream, uh, should you order the fish or should you order the pizza? And it's like, well, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Right? Anybody? How can I open? Oh, okay. Sometimes these messages just flash on the screen, and if there's a bunch of them coming at the same time, then I have to go switch to the other screen. So it says, how can I open up to shy habits in certain situations? Well, same thing that I was proposing multiple times, which is just to slow down and just observe what's actually happening. Because there's a desire, the idea that this is shyness is a symbol. So you want to see what's actually happening. What's actually happening, you can see it when you really slow it down. Well, I won't ruin it for you. You can just find out. I know you'll be able to see it. So I would just say, just slow it down and look. If you're in the social situation and you're experiencing what you're calling shyness, just observe what's actually happening, because shyness is an idea. The direct experience is not shyness. The direct experience, because with shyness, you say, oh, I've got shyness. Then you can Google, what do I do about shyness? And you will come up with, probably, 100 million results returned. And probably not all be entirely unique, but there will be a lot of different responses, right? I mean, there would be some people would say, well, you should go to do cognitive behavioral therapy, and then somebody else will say you should do Jungian analysis, and somebody else is going to say you should take LSD, and somebody else is going to say you should get a benzodiazepines, and somebody else is going to say you should get exactly electrical search of the brain. I was trying to think of, like a TENS device, or you should get electroshock therapy, or which shockingly they still do, and on and on. There'd be at least a million different answers, and how could anybody know? Only you could find out what your actual experience is. And if you find out what your actual experience is, then you're in a much better position, because there's no such thing as shyness. Shyness is just an idea. The reality is just direct experience, which you can directly perceive. And when you see what you're actually doing, then you are clear on what's actually happening, and you don't have to call it shyness anymore, and you don't have to turn to Google anymore either, because you're clear. And there were a couple of other things. So not sure that there's a lot of them here. Yeah. If there's something else that if there was a question or something that you wanted me to respond to that I didn't see or I haven't responded to, let me know. Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi,
Hi,
can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I saw something a little while ago which had to do with how I have used my conditioning as another yoke, another idea for like how hard it is to be.
Mm-hmm.
So so it was interesting because I've made such a thing of my conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really practically insurmountable.
Yeah,
You know?
I know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So and I saw that it was just another thought. It was
Yeah,
another made thing.
that's right.
So that
So
for me was liberating, and I wanted your comment on it.
yeah, well, I think that this, um, yeah, I mean, that sounds like that would be very liberating. I think the question is, then, and then what? Because having seeing that sometimes is all that's necessary, but more often than not, we see it, and then maybe doesn't really make any real difference in our lives. So I'm curious, is it actually making a difference in your life?
My sense is that it does,
Hmm.
because it's like another big limitation I created, and I have every element in so-called reality, like
Hmm.
my long life and so ingrained habits
Hmm.
and made up selves and,
Hmm.
you know, there's a body of theoretical
Yeah,
weight around it, which I don't need to carry.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's great.
Mm.
That's great because, and then the for me, where I mean, in my life, which is all I can really speak about with any real authority, I guess, is that when I see that, the real question is then, do I actually behave differently? And so what I have to for me, it doesn't have to be this way for you, but for me, I want to actually be able to translate the insight into action, I guess you could say. And so what I would then be looking at in my own life is noticing how that shows up in my day-to-day life. So I would notice, for example, this is an interesting thing I've noticed, and you may have noticed the same thing, is um, if I'm around, let's say, my wife, I perceive that my wife is having a bad mood. Okay, then I notice how I alter my behavior, and that's just one example. So then I want to. So for me, I become very curious when I see something like what you're describing, because then I want to see, well,
Hmm.
because it's one thing to see it, it's an important thing to see it, but then does it actually make a difference? Because I think that it's like uh, I think in order for it to really make a difference, for me, and again, this doesn't have to be true for you, but for me, it has to be something that is really integrated. It has to be integrated in a uh, well, really integrated, so that that I can see it showing up in all of my experiences. So if I have that insight that I see, wow, all of this conditioning that I've turned into this big insurmountable thing. If I have that insight and I see that, oh, that's only another idea, then for me to really have uh, that integrated in my life is for that to translate into my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids, my day-to-day life. Am I actually able to benefit from that? And so as an example, when I talk about what I notice that I change my behavior when I perceive that my wife is having a bad mood, that would be an example of just the kind of thing that I can become aware of, and then I can be curious about that. Is that helpful? Is that Do I like that? I mean, I don't. Just all these things that I've just accepted as just the way it is my whole life. It's just I never even thought about it. I never even considered it. I wasn't aware of it. It's just that's how it is. And when I actually become aware that, oh, all of my behavior, really, for all of my life has been just automatic pilot, just reactions. And it's just based upon this conditioning that I have then, in my own mind, come to believe was this massive, insurmountable force. And then I see it's just an idea. Well, if that's really true, then I don't want that to be an idea. You see what I mean? I don't want it just to be, oh, I had that insight and look how great that I am now that I've had this insight. And oh boy, I feel really spiritual. I want to actually know, is this practically making changes that I can really be witness to? I don't want to be bullshitting myself.
I just had the insight, it's I like that you're holding my feet to the fire of that
No, I'm not
insight.
trying to. Yeah.
Well, you are. You might not be trying, but you are, and I appreciate it.
Mm,
It's, I live by myself, so, and
mm,
I've been very kind of autistic even during this time of isolation. So I'll just see how it goes. But for me, it's a very rich vein of
mm,
investigation,
mm.
because I assumed it was like that,
Yeah.
this massive weight.
Yeah.
And yeah. So thank you. I
Good.
wanted to look at it with you.
Yeah. Great.
That's
I'm
that.
very, yeah. I mean, it's a very, it's like one of those things that is shocking to me that uh, it's so obvious, right? Once you see it, it's just so obvious. And then, at least for me, when I see something like that, I wonder how was I so deluded for so long that I thought it was this other thing? And it's like, was I just, do other people know? I wonder, like, was I the only one who was deluded like this? And then I like ask other people, and it turns out most people don't know. So it's it's like when you see these things, then you're there's like this sort of like it's a kind of a small club, I think, of people who actually have seen this. It's like the whole world is crazy.
Yes, obviously. And I have a feeling, I was just feeling a lot of gratitude for having seen it too, because it's beautiful.
Yeah, you don't have to suffer. That's what's so cool about it, is that until you see that, then you just think there's a certain amount of suffering that's inevitable, because look, I've got all of this insurmountable conditioning, and that's just how it is, and I don't want to be doing that, but I have to, because I'm just compelled to. And then you see it and you realize, oh, that that's no more, that no has no more substance than it did the day that it began. It was only ever just a misunderstanding. That's it. Because you see how innocent. I mean, I know you have children who are grown, but you I'm sure you remember these these misunderstandings from early childhood. You can see it in them, and you're like trying to help them with it, but they just misunderstood, and you don't know how to correct that. It was just a misunderstanding, and we've all had those. We had some misunderstanding where we thought whatever we thought, and then we go for decades just assuming that that's true, and then building up our arsenal of evidence for why that is. Nobody could ever love me. I'm unlovable. And then we've got all the evidence, the 16 divorces and the children who don't want to speak to us, and our neighbors don't like us, even dogs don't like us. We don't even like ourselves. It's like this whole big arsenal of evidence that we drag out to do our big war drama every day. And then in a momentary ceasefire, we look and we recognize, oh, it was just like, it was all made up. So that's very, very liberating. I agree.
Can I report something?
In a moment. Yeah, it's really nice, Adriana. That's like it's very nice. It's it's nice. It's nice to meet you here.
I'm really happy to be so interested in what's happening here.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that we. It's like it's the most interesting thing, and then but we were so afraid of it.
It's not that available either. It's rare.
Oh,
And yeah, because I've spent so many years in spiritual searches and so many different things, and this kind of openness and making it as it goes is very rare.
but it doesn't have to be rare for you.
Well, yeah, sure. Not anymore, but
Yeah,
I appreciate the conversation.
yeah,
It's become precious to me.
yeah, yeah, for sure. That's right. Yeah, I it's but you're the here's the other thing. Okay, is that you're able to, or you're choosing to be here. You're choosing to tune in. Not everybody who's here right now is actually here right now. So in a sense, this is th- this is always available, and maybe sometimes it was available, and other people around were tuned into it, but we didn't know. I
Sure.
I mean I'm certain that there are uh, other people who are offering teachings or whatever you want to call it, uh, who are,
Explorations.
say that again.
Explorations.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
who are tuned in, and then maybe sometimes people drop into that too, and there's like a resonance. But if we don't, because I sat in plenty of meetings and I heard these kinds of things, and you know, just kind of, I didn't know because I was so locked into, am I getting it? Am I getting it? Am I getting it? Am I getting it? What about now? Am I getting it? How am I now? And it takes a moment of unguardedness to actually just be present to the actual experience, just as it is. With and to tune into what's underneath the am I getting it? Am I okay? Is the like the intensity of that, and just be with that directly. So these explorations and these conversations happen on many levels.
yeah, and I find the am I getting it, which is a constant too. I find that painful.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's terrible.
It's so gripping, I'm getting this now and I might forget in 2 minutes. I probably will.
Oh yeah. I I always forget. I mean, everything that I think that I need to remember, I forget it, and then but here's the blessing, uh, is I don't need to remember, because only thing that needs to be remembered is the the noose, the how you're going to get the satisfaction in the future. That's the only. It's like, oh, wait, what was the way? I can't remember the way. That's the thing that you can forget. And but when you allow yourself to forget, and you stop grasping for what you think you forgot, it's like, oh, here. So I 100% agree. Yes, it's miserable, and then in an instant, it's just heaven.
And it's a bit, it becomes what you were saying about that student, in grade school that always has their hand up. And I was one of those, one of the miserable creatures that always knew the answer or had to show that I knew it. And
Mm-hmm,
it's kind of becomes the same thing.
mm-hmm,
I go back into my repertoire of known stuff
mm-hmm,
rather than let life reveal it when it does.
mm-hmm. I know, because life is unknown. I mean, every day, this is my life every day. It's like it's all unknown, and then there's the habits of, but there must be something I know, something, and it's just gotten to a point where I don't know. I All the grasping for what I know has only ever turned up just nothing. I've always come up empty-handed. So rather than doing that, just be with this, because this is what's here. And it's just like what I was trying to describe earlier, is that in just being present to this, because it's so wide open, because because it's just bare experiencing, and there's no past to refer to, and there are no symbols, there's no way of knowing what this is. Then it's so wide open that it could be anything. and and the OCD mind is like, well, if it could be anything, it could be something bad. And that is just one way. That's the thing, is that's just one way to do it. Here it is, it's wide open. We can overlay whatever we want, and that's one way to do it. It just happens to be a miserable way. And so instead of continuing to energize that, and not everybody has energized that pattern. We've all got our own unique patterns, but we can start to recognize what are the ruts that have been worn, that are the habits that we're accustomed to, that we fall back into easily, which are just these overlays that, if we find them to be unpleasant, we can stop doing that, and we can just stay with the direct experience. And then it's like, okay, it's wide open. But what's the real truth? Because when that thought comes that says, but it could be something bad, it could be scary, slow down. Let's just look. Because we can so easily get carried away. Oh no, it's something bad. It could be anything bad. And we're projecting all the bad things it could be. But then we can just come back to, but what is actually here? And what's actually here is just this wide open, bare experiencing. And the more that we inhabit this consciously, the more familiar it becomes. Not as objects. It's not like, oh, I know what that is now. But there's a kind of the openness quality, the unknown quality, instead of that being something that we're likely to interpret as something bad, we just become familiar with it as it is. Its own nature is just openness. And I think it just takes enough conscious experience before we get the reassurance of, I haven't died yet. Because that's kind of all that's ever going on. Like whatever we cling to for security, all it ever is well, I think this is the thing that I need to do so that I won't die or won't be tortured or whatever. And when we stop doing that and we don't die and we're not tortured, then it kind of resets things, and we can function with a baseline of openness is okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Adriana. I very much appreciate this. And it's starting to rain, which usually, if it gets any, we'll save it for next week. Save it for next week. So thank you, everybody. I know there's still some more questions, but you can save it for next week. Thank you. See you next time.